So thank you all for tuning in to Bilateral Bites, part of our Australia-India Institute Delhi series. Today we're fortunate to have Ricky Kej with us to talk about music and the power of positivity and its impact on the environment and planet. So many of you will already know Ricky Kej. He's a Grammy Award winner, a professor, and an international ambassador of kindness with UNESCO, among many other accolades. He's used his intellect and power for good, and it's really a pleasure to have you with us, Ricky.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've devoted much of your life, as we've just outlined briefly, in being a real force for good, including this UNESCO Global Ambassador of Kindness. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, what it entails?
So for me, I mean, I've always been a musician ever since I remember. I mean, that I've always been two things, a musician and an environmentalist. And it's only for the last, so even though I've always been making music on the environment and my music has always reflected my passion for nature, it's only for the last couple of years that I decided that, I would dedicate my entire life and all of my music to this particular cause of the environment and sustainability and social impact around that area. So yeah, that's why being an ambassador for UNESCO, being the global ambassador for UNESCO for kindness was quite a huge platform for me to actually do whatever I wanted to do. So basically, I believe that a lot of problems in this world can be solved just by showcasing kindness and showcasing the basic human qualities of empathy, kindness, tolerance, and things like that. So, and I believe that, kindness pretty much encompasses all of these qualities. So, yeah, so that's where I am at right now.
I think I've been really touched by some of our previous conversations before, and also some of the other quite creative pieces you do. You recently sent me a video that you did about sharks. And this I found really fascinating because it touches on what you do truly with empathy. It's not really preaching that you do, it's more awareness raising and cultivating a sense of oneness. So in your shark video, I noticed that you get us to identify better with sharks, put things in context, that we actually kill millions of sharks, but only 6 humans are actually killed by sharks. And then you start to think about why it is that we're conditioned to think in certain ways. You touched on the fact that often it's cinema and movies that are painting sharks or spiders to be the kind of evil animal. And do you think that your music is perhaps a force for empathy and awareness raising? I'm thinking now about your collaboration with David Attenborough and what you did with Wild Karnataka, the feature film.
Yeah, that's true, because the thing is that popular media has always vilified certain animals. Like, for example, the tiger is always the bad guy, the snake is always the bad guy, and anything that is creepy or crawly is always the bad guy. And I think even religion also has got a lot to do with this. So what's happened is that people do not have empathy towards these animals simply because they do not understand that these animals are a very important part of the ecosystem, and and human beings exist because that ecosystem is maintained, that balance is maintained within nature. Like, for example, what I mentioned in the video that you saw is that the sharks maintain the balance of the oceans because they eat the smaller fish, and if the sharks do not exist, then the smaller fish will become much larger in number, and and they would eat up all the plankton materials and the corals and things like that. So basically, the delicate balance of the ecosystem is maintained because the sharks exist. And the sharks do not even look at humans as being their natural prey. In fact, for whatever reason, on a lighter side, for whatever reason, if a shark bites a human, they're just going to spit out the meat, because they're not even going to like what they eat. So that becomes very important. Like, for example, I was watching the Jungle Book, the older version, that is the cartoon. And over there, Sher Khan is basically the tiger, and Sher Khan is the absolute villain in the movie. And and everybody's supposed to rejoice when Sher Khan dies, and it's not like Sher Khan is a bad tiger and there are good tigers also in the movie. There's just one tiger in the movie, which represents all tigers on this planet, and that one tiger is a really bad guy. And I thought that they would probably change that, or they would readapt that particular part of the story in the new Jungle Book. But in the new Jungle Book, it is the same problem that when Sher Khan dies, all of us are supposed to be really happy, you know. So, so that is something that really needs to change. You know, that in popular media, animals should not be vilified, especially if it's an entire species.
Yeah, no, I completely appreciate that and agree. You've also taken your positive message onto the internet during these times of confinement. First of all, I think music itself, for which you're most famous for, is clinically proven to have a positive impact on the brain and on mood. Has music helped you in any way in your own personal life?
So there are a couple of aspects to this. One is that, you know, I always believe that, you know, that there are so many problems in this world, especially, you know, the environmental problems like climate change, there is global warming, there is species extinction, plastics pollution, air pollution, all that stuff. And, you know, but the biggest threat to our environment is the constant thought that everyone has that somebody else will make a difference. You know, that we're always waiting for NGOs to make a difference, governments, intergovernmental bodies, corporations to make a difference, when the truth is that you know, difference can only come by if there is massive behavioral change, and if we bring about change within our own lives and within our own capacity, and truly feel empowered that we ourselves can make a difference by this incremental change that we can bring about. And of course, everyone is aware of all these problems. You know, every single person, I would say, at some capacity is aware of all these problems that I mentioned. But at the same time, how do you move people from mere awareness towards action? You know, that's the golden question that everybody keeps talking about. So I believe that music can be that very strong catalyst for moving people from, you know, mere awareness to action, because music is a very powerful language, not just for communicating a message, but for retaining it deep in the consciousness of a listener. So I believe music can be that emotional language that can actually move people from mere awareness towards action. And when it comes to music being a therapeutic tool, the thing about it is that, yes, I absolutely believe that, because music has been therapeutic to me personally. But at the same time, the opposite direction, because if a certain medium can make a connect to you in a positive way, it can also create a negative way. So when a lot of people say that, you know, that that they are you know, that they use music therapy in a more professional form, and, you know, almost like how a psychiatrist or qualified psychiatrist would actually bring about change in your mental state. That, you know, that they use music. That is something that I always take with a pinch of salt, simply because there are no actual studies conducted, and plus whatever would sound like noise to me would be pure music and heavenly to somebody else. Like, for example, for me, heavy metal is quite heavenly. I love heavy metal. Heavy metal is quite therapeutic to me, but it probably would not have that same. And same thing with, like, let's say, folk music from a different country would sound very discordant to me, but it would sound extremely natural to somebody else. So, and it's also depends on how you're listening to the music, because if you're listening to it on a bad quality MP3, even if it is music that could be therapeutic, it's going to have an effect on your brain, because your brain is going to have to fill in all those gaps which the digital technology is not filling in, you know. So, so that's what. So basically, these things need to be quantified in a much better way before it is called a therapeutic product, because it can actually affect as much as you would believe that it would be.
That's a really good point. And the idea of music as a language as well is quite fascinating. You may have heard a recording basically of the coronavirus itself having been extracted into music. Did you have any reactions to that?
No, of course, that is quite gimmicky, because at the end of the day, like, you know, I believe that every piece of music needs to have a purpose. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of that, oh, it's so cool, you know, we fed it into something, and, you know, we made music, because at the end of the day, music needs to come from the heart. It should not be generated, you know. And that was generated music, you know, but whereas music should be something that you're communicating. You know, it could be even like a girlfriend to a boyfriend, or vice versa, or, you know, a wife to a husband. Or, you know, so music should be something that that is either a communication, or it should be for social impact, or it basically needs to have a purpose, because if it's for then that's music that will last. And
No, I
so, because
understand.
every piece of art needs to have a very strong purpose.
I mean, I really understand your point there, and I think it's a very good one. I think the purpose, though, and this is where you touch on what is music for, you know,
Correct.
passion and from the heart, or another type of purpose. And I think in those cases, brain scans and viruses, the purpose is more to generate understanding. So looking at patterns and isolating patterns that might be heard rather than seen. But I take your point completely that it's not the music of connection,
Correct.
which is the work you're doing.
That's exactly what I meant. As in, for academic purposes, that's a different story. Yeah.
Of course, understood.
Yeah.
Speaking of connection, you do take that positivity and lead by example message. And I know you've been doing quite a bit on Twitter and reaching out. You've had a little bit of personal backlash though, which surprises me. I mean, I'm personally inspired by a lot of what you do. Do you have any insight at all into why you might get any criticism?
See, the thing is that there are always two ways to go about, trying to bring about change. One is basically by showing what is wrong in the world, and through protest, by showcasing what's wrong in the world, by shaming people into action, by showing a very apocalyptic scenario, which is quite effective in some ways. But that's not the way that I try to conduct myself, because I've got a different path that I believe. And I've got a lot of respect and I support a lot of people who follow the path that I just mentioned. But the second path would be by showcasing what is good in the world. And because basically it's the Senegalese, the Senegalese philosopher, that is Baba Diop, he once said that, at the end of the day, we as humans, it's within our nature, we as humans will only protect things that we love. And we will only love things that we understand, and we will only understand things that we are taught. And I remember listening to this quote by Baba Diop about when I was in like the 10th grade, and I realized that this is how I want to live my life. That if I want to change something that I need, or if I want to protect something, then I have to make everybody fall in love with that. And and make them understand that, and then probably teach them as to what it is. So that's what Wild Karnataka, my film, is all about. That fall in love with the natural world. That's what David Attenborough has been doing for the longest time. That make everyone fall in love with the natural world, and hopefully through that love, we will find it within ourselves to protect, to conserve, and to sustain. So so I always believe in a positive message. I always believe in working with people to get things done. I believe in working with governments, no matter how much I dislike the government, or no matter how much I disagree with whatever their policies are. It's very important to work with them because there's a system in place. And if you work with that system, and if you try to get that system to work in the favor of sustainability, then there is no better way to actually bring about change in this world.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you've been doing a lot of brave work actually with the World Health Organization in various guises, including with your work on music. Obviously, you would have seen in the past few weeks or so, the WHO has come under a lot of criticism, particularly by one government who has publicly halted its funding. Do you have views on the WHO's work? Obviously, it's not a one-issue institution, but I'd be really interested in your view and why you chose to partner with the WHO.
I've been doing quite a bit of work with the WHO, which started off with me professionally doing a concert for them at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva. This was in 2018. And then also I work with their Make Listening Safe initiative, which is a really important initiative, which talks about that 1.1 billion young people on this planet are at a risk of hearing loss because of unsafe listening devices and going to concerts with loud volume, and because of just general ambient sound being high in various countries all over the world, especially in India. So basically that I've been doing quite a bit of work with them, even on air pollution and their campaign known as Breathe Life. And I believe that the WHO is a fantastic organization. I think the leadership under Dr. Tedros is absolutely amazing. And the thing is that, of course, they've come under a lot of criticism because of the COVID pandemic.
And I believe that, one can look into, if anything's gone wrong, one can look into that at a later stage, but now is not the time when we are at the thick of the pandemic. And right now, the whole world needs to come together, and the whole world needs to support the one organization which is representing the whole world, which has got over 190 member states signed up to them.
So it's very important that the WHO is respected at this point in time. They are funded, and people understand that they are our best bet right now to actually fight this pandemic. But what is more important than that is that it's a very short-term view to think about the WHO only in terms of the pandemic itself, because at the end of the day, WHO is continuing to work on various other initiatives, including the Make Listening Safe initiative that I'm talking about. They're still very active. They're also working on measles. They're working on tuberculosis. They're still working on eradicating polio. So they're working on all these various other verticals. They're working, and they are strengthening the health systems in countries which can ill afford, health systems, and they're working on their campaign of Health for All, where health is basically a basic human right according to that particular campaign, which Dr. Tedros has been pushing really hard all over the world. So I think it's very, very important to support them, and it's very important to strengthen the WHO at this particular point in time. And I absolutely believe in them, and I strongly feel everybody needs to believe in them.
Yeah, I think there might also be some misunderstandings about the role of the WHO. Some of the criticism I've been hearing, is about the WHO should not have allowed, China to open wet markets or something like that. And I mean, it's simply not set up to interfere at a national level or even subnational level.
Because WHO is mainly a recommendations. Yeah, they're mainly a recommendation agency. They're not a policing agency. They're not
information.
Yeah.
So I think that's another concern. You're talking about, this is the time now to pull together. Obviously, the COVID-19 virus is one thing to consider, but going back to your philosophy of positivity, another exciting thing on the horizon is Earth Day, which is coming up next week. And I think you really embody, quite honestly, compassion, love, and empathy. And I understand that you'll be releasing a new song for Earth Day. So hopefully this will be something that generates positivity as well. I have signed up for your concert. I understand you're doing a fabulous global online concert that I think almost every country in the world can access. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the concert?
Yeah, I would love to. So basically, this Earth Day, that is the 22nd of April, we're doing a live online concert, which will be broadcast first at 8 p.m. India time. And then the second broadcast is going to be at 8 p.m. New York time. So it's going to be repeat. And they're going to be broadcast on social media platforms, on broadcasting platforms, on television, in various countries. So we are hoping to reach out to tens of millions of people through this concert. The concert features 44 musicians from 6 different countries. We've got multiple Grammy Award winners. We've got Baaba Maal from Senegal, who recently became really famous because he so basically the Black Panther movie, the Marvel superhero movie, the Black Panther movie, it won the Oscar for the best soundtrack I think 2 years ago. And the soundtrack is filled with African voices, and all the voices are basically Baaba Maal's voice. So an amazing singer. And then we've got Wouter Kellerman from South Africa. We've got the Zanzi Youth Choir from South Africa, which is 30 choir members from Soweto. And then we've got Pandit Vishnumohan Bhatt, another Grammy Award winner from India. We've got Lonnie Park from New York. We've got Laura Dickinson from Los Angeles. So a whole lot of musicians together. Yeah. And the concert is being live streamed by various UN agencies, by UNICEF, by UNESCO, by the UNHCR. We've got the WWF Earth Day Network. So basically that. Very excited about it, and I hope everyone joins us at 8 p.m. on the 22nd of April.
Well, I certainly can't wait. Just before we wrap up, Earth Day is also about, obviously every day is Earth Day, and the Earth Day movement says so as well, but it's a conscious time where we can reflect on what we can do ourselves. You impress me as a human being that doesn't hold yourself above what you say. You are vegetarian, you're a very conscious consumer, you, I think, even, you know, narrow the amount of clothes that might be in your cupboard. You're a conscious traveler as well. So while you travel a lot, my understanding is you're also able to calculate your own emissions. And you're someone who consciously calculates your own carbon emissions. That might seem a bit daunting for others who haven't thought at that level of depth. But do you have suggestions of where to start if one was thinking about a little impact that they could do and maybe use Earth Day as a motivation?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, that the few things that I do are, number one is that I use public transportation. I do not own a car. So I think that's the first step that people can do, because it's actually very, very simple, and it's actually much cheaper to live this particular way. And as I mentioned, it's even more convenient. Once you get used to it, it's far more convenient than actually having a car. And one day you look back and you'll be like, oh, wow, I had a whole room in my house just to keep my car, you know. So that's the thing. So that's one way. Second way is basically clothes. I think it's important to buy clothes that last for a longer time and constantly reuse them for a couple of years. So I've got very few clothes in my closet. At any given point in time, I have only about 11 sets of clothes in my closet. And I use if you go to my Instagram, you'll see that I pretty much wear the same clothes all the time. And I think that's very convenient for me, because at my concerts, I wear the same set. And once I wear it out, I go to another set. And so if I do not get good photographs from a particular concert, I can always go back to photographs from another concert and post that on Facebook saying that it is this particular concert. So that's about clothes. And then
so there's a versatility to simplicity, you're saying.
Yeah, it is. It's much easier to get things done, you know. And the third thing is about food. So I'm a vegetarian, but being a vegetarian is definitely not enough. I call myself an aspiring vegan. So I try to be vegan wherever possible, especially at home. When I'm traveling, I'm really ashamed to say that sometimes it's not possible. So sometimes I do have dairy at times when I'm traveling, when it's absolutely unavoidable. But I'm an aspiring vegan, but definitely a vegetarian. So I would say that it's important to understand what your carbon footprint is. There are lots of companies all over the world, a lot of local companies also, which can audit your carbon footprint. And then you can figure out ways how to live your life. So when I audited my carbon footprint for the first time in, I think, 2016, that is when I was shocked that, that there are very simple ways that, that I can actually reduce my carbon footprint by almost half, And at this point, if I compare myself to those days now, I've actually reduced my carbon footprint by about 75%. So there are a lot of ways that you can do that. One of the easiest ways is traveling economy class whenever you're traveling abroad, because then you're immediately reducing your carbon footprint by a huge amount, and also by the methods that I just mentioned, by using less water, by reducing the water footprint by just being vegetarian. So there are numerous methods that this can be achieved. And so the first step would be auditing your carbon footprint and then understanding where you can reduce and then reducing your footprint.
Well, honestly, I think that's really inspiring. And even the fact that you're an aspiring vegan rather than actually a vegan, it also shows that you're human, Ricky, and that everyone has their little space to move. And that's almost more encouraging than if you were absolutely perfect right now. But thank you so very much for your time. I'm thoroughly looking forward to the Global Earth Day concert next week and to the release of your new song. So thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.